But there's more. Keep the music going because I've got a story I need to tell you. When I was growing up, I had a pastor, and he one day decided that he was going to shave in church. And so he shaved for the entire sermon. And then we reached the end. He looked at the congregation and said, "I'll bet you talk more about this sermon than any sermon that I've given in the last 5 years. And here's the deal. The message I normally give is way more radical than a man shaving in the pulpit." So you might be wondering, why am I shaving up here? And did I really shave? No, because I didn't want to cut myself. But the reason I'm doing it is because it's unforgettable. And we all have the opportunity to do things in our events, the events that we create, that will stand out, stand the test of time. And that's what I want to do today, is hopefully open your mind to some new possibilities, some new ways of thinking that will lead to ideas that will help you create memorable experiences for the audiences that you gather. And you're going to share ideas with me that will help me one day create different kinds of memorable experiences. So thank you for letting me be here today. I'm looking forward to our time together. And with that, let's get going. So I've already told you this incredible story about my pastor. So I want to introduce another friend of mine. His name is Kumbu. Kumbu is Swahili for to remember. Kumbu grew up in Kenya. And in Kenya, his dad was the chief of the village. He had an aunt who was a baker, and he had a crazy, eccentric uncle whose name was Einstein. Well, his aunt discovered that Kumbu could paint. So as people were traveling to Kenya, they discovered that Kumbu had these amazing paintings, and so they started buying them. And more people came, and one day, a famous artist from Europe came and said, "Kumbu, you need to come with me to Europe and study, and I will make you a master." Well, after a lot of debate with the family, he went to Europe, and he discovered the Dutch painter Rembrandt, and his peers said, "We need to call you Remembrant because you are a rememberer." Today, what Kumbu does is he goes to events all over the world, and because he has really big ears, he hears the things that people are saying that we as event organizers and planners can't hear. And he represents all those who won't speak up for themselves because he's the elephant in the room. Now, here's the deal. If you're watching online, every time that you see Remembrant show up, count it. And at the end, I'm going to ask you to tell me how many times he was in the presentation. This time does not count. So the next time he shows up does count. And the person who gets the right answer will be eligible to win a free copy of my book. And Zach and his team will send that out to you. So with that said, I'm going to get rid of this so I don't make more noise. It was 2017, and I was at Rancho Bernardo Inn, and the speaker was wrapping up a conference. It was called SEMA, and he was wrapping up this conference, and he was leading a session telling us about the role of memory and how we remember things and how we connect ideas together. And while he was talking, this phrase landed in my head: "Make time stand still." And that took me back. It was 1992. I was on the coast of Oregon, and I saw this sunset. And it felt like for eternity, but at least 20 or 30 minutes as the colors kept unfolding and unfolding. And I did something I've never done since or had done before. I danced and I sang on the beach. And I don't dance, just ask my wife. It was powerful. And then I remembered 2006, and I saw the musical Sweet Charity. And if you know that musical, it's a story of a man who falls in love with a seedy dancer, and it turns out she's the person of character and he doesn't have character. And at the end of this musical, after a lot of fun and dancing and laughing, there's this very poignant moment where he is asking himself, do I have what it takes to love this woman. And if you're a man, you've asked yourself that question at some point in time in your life, and time stood still. You can tell it just stood still for me right now, 16, 17 years later. And then last year, I went to see the Savannah Bananas. And they have this thing they do where they bring one of the fans out onto the field, they blindfold them, and then they hide the banana out on the field, and the crowd's job is to lead with words to get this person to find the banana. And it's a fun game. Well, in this particular instance, the person holding the banana was the boyfriend of the girl who was blindfolded. And when she got to him, he's there. And he has the banana, but he also has a ring. Unforgettable. Everyone in the crowd has a tear in their eye. We can design moments like that stand the test of time. And that's what I realize is I want to orchestrate events where time stands still. Now, I'm not God. I can't literally make time stand still, but I can create the essence. I can set the table, or as Tyler said today, I can set the stage. And that's what we can do. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. How do we set the stage to create moments where time stands still, or another word for it is, how do we create unforgettable events, experiences, and moments? And the three things that I think we have to think about are, we have to make it memorable, we have to make it meaningful, and we have to make it momentous. I'm going to break down each one of those, and if you guys want these slides later, they're totally available to you. So the first thing is, how do we make it memorable? It's got to be sticky. You know the book by Chip and Stan Heath? We've got to make it something that's going to stick in people's brains and they can't get it out. And there's a couple of different ways that we do that. First is we do something that's unexpected. Something like me walking down playing saxophone, or something like me shaving. Those are unexpected things. You don't normally do that in business meetings, right? Secondly, you want to combine two ordinary things or more and do something that is unusual with those, something that is extraordinary. And third, we want to do things that involve more than just two senses. Those of you watching online right now, you're at a disadvantage because you only have sight and sound available to you. Those here in the room, they can smell, they can taste the things that we had before and after, and you can even feel some of the energy that's in this room. And hopefully some of that is coming through to you if you're watching online. Well, let's talk about this a little more. A couple things that I've done, and if we had time, I'd love to hear some of the things you've done. We had our MC dress up as Neo from The Matrix when he was introducing our keynote speaker, because that was the theme of the day and of the event. And we had an LED wall, and we had all the scrolling letters going down. It was a powerful, unbelievable moment. Also, we have a violinist who, if you're in San Diego, Amy Serrano is an amazing violinist. And when people came up the escalator at the San Diego Convention Center, there she was in all her glory, interacting with the crowd. That's not something you're expecting at a business conference. You didn't expect to come and hear a violinist or have these really amazing moments like that. So we can do something that's unexpected. That'll make it memorable. We can combine the familiar. Again, I look to the Savannah Bananas because they are something that a lot of us have seen online. If you haven't, just go look them up. So a banana as a headset, those are two ordinary things. That's kind of fun. A breakdancing first base coach. Again, breakdancing on a baseball field, and then a guy on stilts who is batting and the umpire's having to get up on a high stool, or they've got a cowboy who does rodeo and he is a pitcher. He's actually a really good pitcher. And they are doing things on the baseball field that have never been done before. That is their charge. Every night they are inventing new things, combining the familiar, doing the unfamiliar. When it comes to multisensory, we know that the olfactory sense is the most direct path to our memories. Science proves that. I'll give you an example. I spent 7 months in Kenya, and while I was in Kenya, I lived on a sugar plantation for 4 months. And the sugar plantation had a refinery, and if you're familiar, part of the refining process for sugar, they use sulfur to purify the sugar. Well, sulfur smells like rotten eggs. And on some days, the wind would blow right into our little village, and it would make me sick to my stomach. This was over 30 years ago, and to this day, when I smell rotten eggs or sulfur, I will get sick to my stomach. But not only that, The food they brought me when they wanted to soothe my stomach was bananas. Now, I love bananas except when I smell rotten eggs, because I remember that experience where I felt so sick to my stomach, and then they brought me bananas. That's over 30 years ago, and we all have odors. I could ask each and every one of you about some aroma, some fragrance that when you smell it, it takes you to a certain place. At events, I've literally had bread baking in the back of the room, and people will start thinking about home or grandma or something that's soothing, their favorite bakery. And I was doing that on purpose because I wanted them to stick around because we were having lunch after the event. Or I've had vats of coffee at the Marriott Marquis. Or actually, it was at the Manchester Grand Hyatt downtown. They would create vats of coffee. They pulled out some box fans, and they blew the aroma of coffee throughout one of the halls to get people to linger around and enjoy a longer networking break than they might have done otherwise. And by the way, Starbucks does something similar, if you've noticed. And then people are traveling a long way to come to San Diego. In San Diego, one of the odors that you might think of is tropical. And so we will have the fragrance of lemon or orange as people walk up to the desk and they're tired, and that all of a sudden has a refreshing, inviting kind of thing. And it plays a powerful role in setting the stage for memorable events. So first thing is make it memorable. Another story, if you've seen Hamilton, Lin-Manuel Miranda is the composer also of In the Heights. And that was his first musical, and I saw that a few years ago, and it was a very powerful experience for me. In fact, so powerful that the next morning, I made notes on 14 different ways that my story connected with that story. It was things like, the boy loves the girl, but he's afraid to tell her. Or, the girl goes off to Stanford, but she has to drop out because she's failing, but she doesn't want to tell her family because they sold the family business so she could go. She's feeling embarrassed. Or the boy who wants to be seen as a man. Or the person who wants to run away to the Dominican Republic so they can escape their problems. Or the person who wants to win the lottery so they can build up their entire community. Or the way the whole community grieves when grandma passes away. Every one of those stories has a point of personal and universal connection, and it got me to see the power of story. In our events, we create a sense of story. When we invite people into our story, and it's the reason I'll tell you a lot of stories, it's going to help you connect to my story, but it might remind you of something in your own story that will connect, and then all of a sudden it's going to have more of a memory hook for you going on. So the next thing we want to do is we want to make it meaningful. Meaningful to me, meaningful to you. And so Stories does that. My friend Mike Rayburn, some of you plan events and you should hire Mike Rayburn, and I'm talking to you, Zach. I think you know him. He is a musician, he's a comedian, he's a keynote speaker, but what he is known for is the power of a two-word question. What if? What if? So when he was in college, he toured around to campuses and played in bars, and he's a guitar player and singer, and people would ask him to perform a song. And he didn't know the song, but eventually he said, well, what if I could do that song in a way that I know it? And so he would start doing things like singing Green Eggs and Ham Led Zeppelin style. He learned how to play The Devil Went Down to Georgia all by himself, which if you're a musician, you realize that's insane. He had to learn whole new ways of playing the guitar just so that he could do that. All because of this two-sentence question, what if I could? What if I could do that? What would I have to do? What would I have to figure out? And I'm going to tell you some more about this idea of thinking like a film composer. One of the things that we have to do when we are creating meaningful events is we have to help people feel safe. We have to create a sense of trust. Feel like this is a good place to be and you're in the right place. And we've got you taken care of. As event planners, we're paying attention to all the details because we know if we do that, people are going to be able to rest, to relax. They're not going to want to be in this runaway, fight or flight or freeze syndrome, but instead they can trust that we've got it and they can enjoy the event. So we have to intentionally design it so that they feel psychologically safe. But we also have to think about a group of people that's only recently becoming to our awareness, or at least for me. I had, in fact, 2 weeks ago, a lady set me down And she said, Phil, for years, I thought I didn't like your events because I'm British and you're American. Here's what she didn't like. You see these pictures. There's a guy holding signs, encouraging people to give high fives and to engage. And we love that. At our event, we love people to be really engaged and boisterous. Well, she said, I'm British, and that's not the way we are. So I thought that's why I didn't like your event, or the loud music wasn't my thing. Well, she said, I've recently discovered I have ADHD. And those things are assaulting me in a way that's uncomfortable. And now I understand it's less about me being British and it's more about me being neurodiverse. I wonder if we could create a way for people like me to feel more comfortable at your event. And it got me thinking, we've got to figure out how to serve the neurodiverse and help them feel safe. We also need to create a sense of belonging, like this is your community. You're among friends. And I think Zach did a great job here of creating a bar or lounge where we made a few friends as we came in here. You're among peers here. You're not all by yourself. This is a place where you can feel safe. But in this whole process, just like me with the lady with her neurodiverse issues, which, by the way, I've got family members with those issues, so I'm familiar, but I haven't thought about the role of that in planning. We need to be willing to be uncomfortable with some of the conversations that need to happen so that we can create that experience for others. Another part of creating a meaningful event is there's an emotional journey that people are on while they're at the event. This is a picture up here of me. I'm at dinner with a few friends, and I've just told a story about someone who used to work for the Savannah Bananas, and she had been there as a summer intern. While she's there, her mom and sister went to visit her, and while there, they found out that a family member was very sick and was likely to die within days, and so they needed to get back home to Kansas. Well, there were no flights available, and they were like, what do we do? What do we do? Well, someone on this Savannah Bananas organization heard about the story. They got on the phone. They booked them 3 tickets, got them home that night, and I'm telling this story, and I'm emotionally moved while I'm telling this story at dinner in this bar. Well, my waitress comes up and sees me that I've got tears in my eye, and she said, oh, honey, you need another drink. And she turns around and goes to the bar and grabs me another drink, charges me for it later, by the way. But it became a funny moment because first I'm in tears telling a story, and the next moment we're all laughing, and then we were able to have a deep conversation about some things that we really needed to talk about, and it had been tense up until that moment. So we had started an emotional journey. Well, as we think about creating emotional journeys, we have to think, where are people starting? When they arrive, you guys came here, and if I had asked you at the beginning, where are you at emotionally right now? Some of you maybe left a tense conversation at work. Some of you came late because something just happened. You were on the highway, maybe there was an accident, or you found out about something going on in the family. Some of you were like on cloud 9 because some really great things were taking place. Wherever you started, we have to know where that place is and help you come into the experience and be able to move on from that, or maybe stay present with that. But after that, after the starting point, then we have to help you focus in. So, if all those things are happening and you're able to be here and be present, we have to help you become present in this moment. My friend Pete Vargas runs Advance Your Reach, and one of the exercises he will do, and I'll offer this to you guys, at the beginning of the event, he'll say, I want you to do something I'm only going to ask you to do once. And I want you to reach in your pocket, and I want you to grab that phone. Don't do it right now. And I want you to send a message, an email or a text message, to someone, either at work or at home, who made it possible for you to be here. And he'll give them a minute to write that message. And it allows them to be grateful that someone made it possible for them to be where they are. That also gave them permission to say, now, let's focus here because there's a reason that you're here, and I want you to be fully present to it. Don't sit there and try to do 2 things at once. Don't multitask. Instead, I want you to be present because there's a reason you're here, and there's something that you came here for that if you're willing to look for it, you're going to find it, and it could change your life. And in fact, that's happened. I was planning on multitasking the whole time I was there. When he said that, I wrote that message, and then I stayed present, and some really powerful things happened just within the next 2 hours after he did that. The next thing in the emotional journey is thinking about, okay, look at the roller coaster of emotions people usually have. There's happy moments, there's down moments, sometimes there's sad moments, sometimes you're getting angry. I work in social media and we get angry at Mark Zuckerberg for all the changes in the algorithm. And those emotions, we need to allow space for it, but then we need to think about, well, what do we do when someone's there? And Charlie works in the church world, and I know back in my church days, we thought a lot about this. Like, I don't want to follow up a really happy, upbeat song with a somber moment of silence. That'd be like really awkward. I need to give people space and time to get to a moment of silence. So thinking about how do we follow this up? What's the music that's needed? What kind of lighting and mood should we have right now? And are there any aromas and other things that we can be doing to either intensify this or help people move on to what's next? But being aware of where people are in their emotional journey can help make something meaningful. Another thing we need to think about is, who are these customers? What's the avatar? And the best way I know to figure out who these people are is to talk to your marketing team and say, hey, who do you think's coming to this event? What are they like? Where are they at in their career? What kinds of things might be going on? And tell a story. For us, one of the avatars we have is a lady in her late 30s, early 40s who's likely working for somebody else's business, likely married, likely has kids. And so we start thinking about, what kind of music will she be listening to? What did she have to do to come here? Did she have to trust the kids to her husband, who she's not sure if he's taking care of them, or Johnny has a broken arm, or they're actually staying with the grandparents, or are they going to spoil the kids? Like, you got to think about these things. What are they feeling like emotionally? Knowing the avatar will help you. And then you can also talk to the customers. I love to get on the phone or get in focus groups or even just on social media and ask questions. What do you think about this? What do you think about that? It helps make some of the decisions, giving them even some ownership of the event. And then, again, anticipating where are they going to be at when they arrive. We've kind of already talked about that. One of the ways to do this is through something called event musicology. And this may not be a term that you've even thought of, but think about Hans Zimmer, who is a musical composer for films, and he writes film scores for movies that follows that emotional journey and the storyline of the entire movie. And he's thinking about, what is the right emotional note to strike at this moment, and how do I move people through this story in a way that's going to intensify the emotions? And the way you'll know he does a good job is to sometime watch your favorite movie and turn the sound off. And you'll realize, and then turn it back on and see what happened, what difference he made. If we were to break our events down into micro scenes and think about what's going on in each one of these moments and how can I intensify it with lighting, with music, with staging, with other things that are going on, all of a sudden, it sounds overwhelming, but if you do it even in the most critical moments within your event, it can be powerful. John Vitale is an event musicologist, and he said this, and I know Zach will love me for quoting this. This wasn't written for Zach, but it's there. He said, event producers often leave music as a last-minute item for their AV provider to figure out. He said, why do that? Music is one of the most effective ways to connect emotionally with your attendees and supercharge each module or each scene of a show. And I agree with that. I think it's powerful. But another way that we can make things meaningful is we can have insider moments. So I made a joke just a minute ago about Mark Zuckerberg. We have another one. For 4 years, we had parodies, musical parodies that we did at our conference. And this is a picture of a year we did Annie. And during that, we wrote a line about Mark Zuckerberg where we said, we thank you, Mark Zuckerberg, for the algorithm. And it was all tongue-in-cheek, and everybody in the room cracked up, because all social media marketers know that we have jobs because there's an algorithm, and we're constantly trying to figure out what's going on now. Well, outside of a social media event, that might not have been funny. So figure out what's going to be funny in your context, but then additionally, don't make it so narrow that the only people who get it are the speakers or some small group within the event where you're alienating everybody else. Make sure it makes sense to the people in the room. 2016, we went from being a single hotel to a citywide event. And I had a concern. Maybe you've felt this concern. My concern was this. People are going to come to the conference, to the convention center during the day, and at some point they're going to want to go back to their hotel room and they might not come back. How do we solve that? And so I realized there were 3 things that would be main reasons why they go back. One is they might want to get some work done in private. 2, they might want to kick up their feet and take a nap. And 3, they might want to brush their teeth after a meal, after a break. So I said, well, let's solve those. First, we created a space where people could work. Second, we created a quiet zone where they could kick up their feet, take a nap, or at least be quiet for 20, 30 minutes. And then I'll tell you a story of how we solved the third. This is Malene. Malene is from Denmark. In 2016 was the first time she came to our conference. And she came up to our information desk and she was looking concerned. And she said, I need some help. I need a drugstore. I'm looking for a place where I can buy a toothbrush and toothpaste because I need to brush my teeth so I can keep networking. Well, the team looked at her and said, hey, we can help you. Come follow me. And the team walked her over to the ladies' bathroom and they said, come inside here and there's a basket. And in the basket, you will find mouthwash, dental floss, a toothbrush and toothpaste. You can keep the toothbrush and toothpaste, enjoy the rest of the show. Now, Malene was blown away that we'd thought of that little detail. In fact, she said, if they thought of that, they've probably thought of everything. I'm buying my ticket right now. And she literally went over and bought her ticket for the next year. And then she said, I'm going to tell my friends. Now, some of you might say, my CEO is never going to authorize me buying toothbrushes and toothpaste for everyone at the event. First thing, not everyone needs it, so there's that. But here's the ROI. First of all, people make fun videos, and that's fun, but that's not the ROI. The ROI is this. It only costs $3 to buy a toothbrush and toothpaste for as many sets as you want. But the return on that is, I calculate to be at least $15,000, and here's how I got there. Malene has come back multiple times, at least $5,000 of revenue just from her coming to the event multiple times. And then she's told her friends, we've made at least $10,000 off of her friends. That's a pretty significant ROI off a little tiny thing where we were just trying to anticipate a need because we didn't want them to leave the show and miss out. We actually didn't make any more money from her coming back, except we did, because she stayed and she kept coming back and telling her friends. So there's a positive ROI on little things that we choose to do. The third thing then is we make our event momentous, meaning it's stacked full of great moments. This book, if it's not on your shelf, should be The Power of Moments by Chip and Stan Heath. I'll quote it in just a minute here. They talk about the importance of first impressions, but in fact they talk about all the impressionable moments that happen. One of the things they do in the book is they talk about a study they did with Disney, and Disney World in particular, and they interviewed people after they left the park, and they did a survey to find out what were their ratings of their experience. And they would ask them to rate different things within their experience, like the amusement rides, the lunch lines, the parade, the fireworks show, etc. And what they found was people had really great experiences on their favorite rides, meeting the characters, going to the parade and fireworks show. But then there were those down experiences that got poor ratings, like having to pay too much for food, having to deal with the heat in the middle of the summer and crying, complaining kids, and some other things. But at the end of the day, they still gave it a great rating because they were welcomed well and the ending experience was awesome, and they had some peak experiences during the day that defined their experience, and over time, those were the things that they remembered. So that shows the power of compounding moments. When we create lots of great moments through our event, they start stacking on each other, but it's not additive, it's multiplicative. And so it keeps adding up to something greater and greater within the experience. One of their statements is, not all moments are created equally. And we all know that. We can't pay attention to every single moment within an event. And when I talked about a film score for every scene, it would be impossible for us to think about every little scene within the event. We have to think a little bit larger sections of time. I like to change what they said, though. What they said is it's created equally, but I say not all moments are remembered equally. So when I think back on a Disney experience, I think about those great rides, meeting those characters, that fireworks show. I don't remember as well standing in line paying too much for a hot dog. So they say, and I agree with this, these are some of the moments that we can engineer. The first moments, the peak moments, those moments where things are crescendoing, or critical moments where everyone's together. then there's also the last impressions. And I think as event planners, I don't know if your experience is like mine, but we get through the whole planning process, and when it comes to the last moment or the last experiences, that gets our afterthoughts. It gets our leftover energy. And here's how I know that. A few years ago, I noticed something happening. We would always get everybody from our team, the staff and volunteers, on stage at the end of the event and take a big picture. It was cool for social media. We loved doing it. But what I noticed happening was all of our guests were turning around and leaving, and we weren't there to greet them or say goodbye because we were all up on stage. And I said, that's not a good experience for our guests. That's kind of deflating. We just had this huge event, a great ending to the keynote. See you next year, and then bye. And there's nothing more. So I said, we're going to fix that, and we're going to move when we take that picture, and we're all going to stand out in the hallway, which takes a lot of effort when people are tired to get them to go be friendly one last time, but it's super important. And then there's this concept of brick and mortar. And brick and mortar works like this. If you have any experience with building houses, if you only have bricks but no mortar, that wall is going to fall down. Mortar is cement or whatever you're using to hold the wall together. A lot of events are like that. We have great bricks, we have great sessions, we have great parties, we have great little micro events within it, but what's holding those things together? Have we thought about the connective tissue that's causing all of these things to hold together? I think a lot of times we need to think about that. Sometimes that's the MC. Sometimes that's what's happening on this break. Are there people there helping people connect? One of the ways we do that is through something called the snowball effect. And Andy Stanley made this statement famous. We try to practice it. Do for one what you wish you could do for everyone. This is where we're creating micro experiences that have a cumulative effect. So a lot of times it's a customer service moment. Zach reminded me last night of a story I tell of a lady who came up complaining that our event wasn't for her. She didn't like it. None of the speakers spoke her language. It was too basic, blah, blah, blah. And I started asking her questions and said, well, tell me more about what you want to learn. What did you come here for? What do you do? I started just asking. I said, do you mind if I pull out the program? Let's take a look together. And she was interested in advanced things on Instagram. I said, there are 3 speakers who I know have the knowledge that can help you. Here's my recommendation. Go to these sessions and sit up front, and when they're done, go talk to that speaker. I know they can help you. She did that. She came up to me later, and she thanked me because it had transformed the event, because I just took a moment to understand. And I couldn't do that for everyone. I'm the event director. I can't do that for 2,000, 5,000 people, but I did it for a few, and I encouraged my staff to do it for a few, and that had a cumulative effect where they think we're helping everyone, when in fact we're not. When you do that, something else happens. Steve Brown was a professor of mine in grad school, and one time I needed some advice, and he said these great words to me. He said, Phil, you never know when 15 minutes will change your life. It could be in this hour, something I say, something that happens in one of these conversations. If you live a life expecting that serendipitous things are going to happen, they will, because you'll see them. If you live blindly thinking it's always going to be like this, nothing's going to change, you're also going to be right. Another way that we create micro experiences is through connecting. So we hire people called networking ambassadors who work the event, and their sole job is to meet people and connect people. That's all they do. We also bake networking into the event. We use an app, of course, and AI is going to revolutionize the way we use apps over the next several years. We create meetups, we have table talks, we have lots of different places, but ultimately, I'm trying to create a culture where people are going to feel comfortable with each other, and they will start meeting each other and introducing each other, and we don't even have to be part of that mix. Now, Savannah Bananas has a theme of experimenting constantly. Let me ask you guys a question, and I can't see all of you, but I can now. I want you to raise your hand. How many of you do between 1 and 5 events per year? Okay. How many of you do between 6 and 10 events a year? How many of you do, and just raise your hand once, whichever category you fall into. How many of you do 11 to 20 events a year? Okay. How many of you do more than 21 events a year? All right. So this theory is going to go out the window because this room has half and half. Some of you do a lot of events a year. Some of you don't do very many. I personally, only do a couple events per year right now. I've done as many as 50 or 60 a year, but right now I only do a couple. But here's the deal. None of us are Disney World or Disneyland, who does events 365 days a year. They are constantly able to learn and experiment and try things. Those of you who are doing many events a year, you have a lot more opportunity to experiment and try things than those of us who are only doing a few events a year. We need events like this where we can learn from each other so we can try things through someone else. So have you tried this before? Have you checked out this app? Have you checked out this tool? What about this? One of the ways that we can speed up our learning is not only networking, but it's also through the partners that we have. So SEAS is just a great example, but there are many partners that we work with who are doing events constantly. Zach, how many events do you guys produce a year? One. Not you, Zach. Zach Grant.
Oh, sorry.
300 or 400. Okay, so they're getting close to Disney. And other companies are like that, whatever vendors you work with. Lean into that. Lean into those relationships. Talk to these ladies at UC San Marcos who are doing lots and lots of events every year. Some of you are doing quite a few. We can leverage our partners. We also need to be willing to take some risks and try some things that we've never tried before and see how it goes and be okay with, not everything's going to go perfectly. Try a speaker out who may be new and maybe a little bit green, but it might be worth it because one of them might really do well. I've got another story. I'll never forget the event I went to where I felt like a cow, and no, it was not Nam. It was a 20,000 person event, and I was in the keynote, and the speaker was really, really good, and he left me with a few things that I wanted to turn to my neighbors and talk about. And I was ready to do that when the MC said, now it's time to go on break and go to your next session. It's unfortunate, something happened. Someone on the AV team thought it'd be a really good idea to clear the room. And the way they did it was they cranked the music up, hard rock at 11, Spinal Tap. I could not think. Literally, all those thoughts that I just gathered during that session went out my brain. The only thing I wanted to do was turn around and move out of that room as fast as I could. That was an awful experience, and that led me to create this list that I'd like to share with you. I came up with 25 more ways to create memorable experiences, and it all starts with the memory formula. And I know some of you, it's been a long time since college algebra, so let me break it down for you. F of x is you're solving a problem for x, and x in this case is experience. And then you take 5 times your customer experience.
Phil.
Yeah.
Hey, Phil.
What?
Phil, are you really going to do this?
Of course I'm going to do this. This is good stuff.
This is boring.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, how many of you love seeing slides like that? Yeah, right. And I don't think any of you. By the way, if you took a picture of that, trash it right now. There's nothing on that slide that's of any value. It's mostly garbage. I pulled together familiar things and turned it into garbage. None of us enjoy going to boring events. I'm going to ask for a little bit of audience participation here. So, and by the way, if you're watching on the live stream, do we have people on the live stream right now? Yeah. Okay. If you're on the live stream, I'd love for you to participate too. Popcorn style, tell me what makes an event boring to you. And go ahead and raise your hand or just shout it out. Tell me a few things. What makes an event boring to you? Yep.
Uninteresting events, like just bad topics.
Bad topics, okay? Yeah.
No interaction.
No interaction. What else?
Bad speakers.
Bad speakers, yeah, absolutely.
Bad AV.
What's that?
Bad AV. Not SEAS Productions.
Bad AV. Yeah, you can't hear.
Bad
Can't,
support.
yep, what else? No music. Thank you. Anyone online have something you want to share? It actually says it's offline up here, so maybe I don't have a live chat. Yeah, I asked the all-knowing Facebook the answer to this question, which, by the way, I didn't put that up there. And here's what they've told me. Standing in line. Standing in line is boring when you have to get coffee or go to the bathroom. That can be a boring experience. Having bad food, and you paid for it, that can be bad. Or weak or no coffee, an event that doesn't serve coffee. And I know some of you are tea drinkers, so we'll say tea. Speakers who just read from their slides and never look up. Oops. How about that moment after registration? You guys probably know what I'm talking about, where you go through the lines, it's an uninterested person on the other side of the desk. They're like, oh, okay, we can help you, and they don't really want to help. And then they get you your badge, they give you your bag, and then you're like, oh, shoot, what do I do now? This program, and this, Zach has improved things. The first time I went to NAM, this happened to me. This program is 76 pages long. I don't know where to go. Oh, no. And I'm an introvert, and I retreated inside myself, but I still gave it a shot. I was like, okay, I came all the way here. I've got to give it a go. But that's an awkward moment. To me, that's a boring moment that we can solve. And then being herded like cows. Well, I think boring has another word, and that is forgettable. So if we were to draw a bell curve, and by the way, this isn't on this slide. I'll get to this in a second. If we drew a bell curve, 10% of events are unforgettable for all the right reasons. And another 10% is unforgettable because they're terrible. And we're going to talk about them because they were so bad. The middle 80% is completely forgettable. And that's another way of saying boring. And maybe it wasn't boring. Maybe actually there were some fun things that you did, but it didn't actually stick with you. And here's why. This is where Ebbinghaus's forgetting curve comes into play. Hermann Ebbinghaus was a psychologist in Germany. He lived in the 1800s, late 1800s, and he studied the science of retention. And here's what he discovered. We don't remember nearly as well as we think we do. He asked people after a week and after a month how much they thought they remembered, and then he tested them. And here's what he found out. They remembered a lot less. I'll give you that clue. So after 1 hour, this will be open mic, how much do you think people remember after 1 hour following a session where there's not any intentional reinforcement that's taken place? Any guesses? 50%. Somebody knows the answer. You're not qualified to give any more answers. 20%. It's 50% is accurate. All right, how about after a day? How much do people remember? 25%. 25%. Actually, I asked how much do they remember. How much have they forgotten? Reverse of that would be 75%. It's actually 70%. After a week, it's 75%. After a month, they have forgotten up to 90% of what they learned and experienced. That's not very encouraging for those of us in events if we're trying to prove an ROI on all the efforts that we've put in place, right? So there are things that we can do, and all the things I've been talking about help make it, reinforce it, and cause it to be a little bit more sticky and get people thinking about it. But they actually have to do something with it. This is scary. This is scary because we could be creating forgettable events without even realizing it, thinking we're doing something really powerful. So that's why I came up with this little diagram, which I go into great detail on Zach's podcast, so I'm not going to talk about it right now. But I talk about how do we take people from a dried event where it's dull, resistant, isolated, exhausted, and distracted, and turn it into something that's tasty. And so there's a whole chapter in the book. You guys are all getting a copy of it. You can read that because I don't want to spend time on that because I've got something else that I want to talk about. And that's this. We need to think like bakers. I want to introduce you to my friend, Josh Allen. Josh is the owner and founder of Companion Bakery in St. Louis, a very well-known bakery in the Midwest, and he has lots of different clients, and he helped me understand this metaphor of baking. The place that you start is you need to understand what is the journey, what's the experience that a client is trying to create, and that's what we do as event organizers, right? We need to understand what is that journey and then define what is success, what is a good loaf of bread going to taste like, what is a good event going to feel like, taste like, look like, what will people experience? And then invite your partners. Even a baker doesn't do it all themselves. They're finding the right people to source the ingredients. They're trying to find the right kind of oven to put in because maybe this type of bread is going to require a different oven. And then you start early and you experiment. He's got clients where it's taken him a year of testing and experimenting with bread until he gets just the right sandwich bread for like a po' boy. He has a customer that wanted the perfect bread for a po' boy, and it took him a full year of experimenting and trying things and thinking about it and going back to the client and focusing on what is that outcome. Now, when it comes to baking bread, I'm going to talk a little bit here about baking bread. And let's go ahead and get these up here for you. There are 4 main ingredients when it comes to baking bread. We've got flour, we've got salt, yeast, and water. You can't see the water, but trust me, there's 3/4 of a cup of water up here on stage. And when we put these things together, we can bake a loaf of bread. We didn't test this hat to see if it fit me. It doesn't really, but that's okay. It's all about the moment. Now, flour, when it comes to events, is like our content. These are the sessions that we are creating. When it comes to flour, there's all-purpose flour, there's whole wheat flour, there's rye flour, there's organic flour. You can get flour that comes from special places in the world. There's lots of different ways that we can find flour, and if you adjust even the quantity of it, it will change the taste in some different ways. But flour, for us, it's our content. So if we have really good flour, that's going to affect the quality of the event or bread that we're creating. If it's just plain flour, we're creating peanut butter and jelly style Wonder Bread, that might be exactly what you need to do. That might be the event that you're planning. You know what? This is just a cookie cutter event. It's only an hour. We just need to get it done and have it happen, and we'll make it as special as we can, but this doesn't require all the work that's going into a year of experimenting to get the perfect loaf. But some events, Zach, yours and mine, we have all year to work on it. We better be working on it and making that an artisanal loaf, so this content better be the best in the world. Well, after the flour, we've got salt. Now, if you're mixing bread, do you think I ought to pour all of this salt in there? Would that be a good idea? No, that'd be a bad idea. I've got 1 teaspoon of salt right here. That'll be about the right amount for a basic loaf of bread. You can experiment with that. Salt doesn't make nearly the difference that flour does, but if you don't have salt, it's like having no culture, no taste, nothing interesting. It's going to be very bland bread. But if I had too much in there, it's not going to be fun to eat. Not enough in there, also won't be very fun. Yeast is a really interesting thing. Now, we can make unleavened bread, if that's not what we're here for. Most bread has yeast in it. Now, are there any bakers in the house? Anyone here who? Yes, okay. So answer me a question. If I pour the yeast in here, but don't mix it, what's going to happen?
Well, you have to add the water too.
Okay, I'll add the water. Okay, now the water's in there. If I don't, I have to mix it?
Agitate it, yeah.
Why?
Because that's what activates it.
It activates the yeast, it makes it work. But if, let's say I activated it, but I just kept it in a small little part of the bowl, the yeast is activated now because it's been mixed, but it's not going to, it needs to spread out. So yeast at our events is like connecting. It's the people getting to know each other. It's people, your super connectors at an event need to spread out through the whole event. If they all stay together, they're not going to get activated, and people aren't going to experience the power of what happens when strong networking is taking place. And water, which this looks like I don't have enough water because this is not working very well. I followed the recipe. So this is what happens when a non-baker is trying to bake bread, and I don't know, maybe it's San Diego, but that's very clumpy.
So you just got to have a mixer someplace.
We need more water, but that's not my point. Water is communication. So water is what connects everything together. And if we don't have good communication, we're not telling people what's happening, not sending it out via app or email or social media or whatever, and they don't know what's going on, then they're going to feel isolated, like some of these clumps in this bowl. They're not going to feel very connected. And clearly, I don't have enough communication going on in this bowl right now. Well, I'm not doing that just to be unforgettable here on stage. I'm doing it because I think it's a great analogy. When it comes to events, we only have a few basic ingredients that create our events. And you can mix them together in lots of different ways. And a beginning event planner can create an event. It may not be unforgettable, but they can create an event. Almost anyone can create an event with a little bit of guidance, but to create a great, unforgettable event requires that you know and master all these different ingredients and get them working together to create the type of outcome that you're looking for. And sometimes you need a master baker to come on stage and help you, because I don't know what I'm doing. I know events, I don't know baking. Another thing, though, that you need to understand are your constraints. So when you're baking or you're creating events, we have a couple of different constraints that we need to think about. One is time. How long do you have until your next event? Another is money. You may or may not have a budget, but if you know what your budget is, that's a very helpful constraint because it can unleash some of your best ideas. If you have a venue already selected, it's selected for you, or it's by default, that's just where you have to do it. The venue has constraints. There's things you can do in this room, there's things that you can't do in this room. And you have to ask, once you know what those constraints are, what does this make possible? And then invite your partners, people that you're working with, the other planners, the other teams, the vendors that you're working with, and say, okay, let's work together and let's create a great, unforgettable experience given these constraints that we have, given this mission that we have. One of your constraints is your oven or your venue, the context. I like SEAS. When you're baking bread, if you stick this into a brick oven versus a convectional oven versus a traditional oven, you're going to get different outcomes every time. And so the type of loaf that you want will be dictated by the type of oven you're using. The venue that you're in makes certain things possible and other things impossible. If you're at an outdoor amphitheater, it opens up all kinds of possibilities, but you also have to have fallback plans. If you're in a traditional theater-style venue, that makes certain things possible. It makes networking harder because people are all in single lines. If you're at a venue that you can do sitting in the round, that's really cool for the audience. It's really hard for the speaker because they're trying to figure out, who do I talk to? And sometimes someone's always looking at my backside. I don't like that. So that's a different style of speaking, and not all speakers are going to be comfortable with that. Additionally, when we're thinking about baking, we need the right people baking. We don't need me. We need someone who knows what they're doing. Likewise, on our teams, we need the right people in the right roles. Sometimes we get volunteers who are great people, put them in the wrong role. Provide the right training. Also get them focused on customer service. Now, I don't have time for this, but I'd like to challenge you guys to think about a question and maybe do this with your team. And if you're watching online, do this with your team as well. I was talking to a friend recently who, she works in university sports events. And for large university, oftentimes football games, where they have to find staff from outside of their community to come in and work the event. And she was telling me about a situation where they bussed in a bunch of people from 8 hours away. And these people would arrive and they would have no idea where they were, what university it was, and what they were doing. And she said, I literally get 5 minutes with them to train them on how I want them to run the event. And I said, wow, there's not a whole lot you can say in 5 minutes. What do you do? And that would be my question to you. You've only got 5 minutes, and maybe it's a 2-minute video that you have to create. If you could create the essence of your event and boil it down to just a couple of minutes, what would it be? You also need the right speakers. I ask speakers to be available for at least a day of the event, available to talk to people and circulating around so that they are part of the event and not just dropping their knowledge and leaving. I also am not a fan of green rooms, and here's why. Green rooms are a great way for speakers to escape and not have to interact with anybody. Instead, I like a ready room where for a couple hours before their presentation, they can go in there, get in the right mindset, maybe practice it, but afterwards, I like them to go out and be with the people. They came to be with the speakers, so I want them to be with the people. And then one thing I found very important, and we learned this the hard way, is the speakers need to know who your customer is. We had a speaker who this first year, he got a mediocre score, but we knew he was an up-and-comer, so we gave him a second chance. Second year, he was in the top 5 speakers. So we're like, awesome, come back year 3. Year 3, he was the second from the bottom. And I told him, dude, I don't know what happened, but you bombed. People didn't like it. It was really bad. And he felt terrible, and he had a conversation with me, and he realized he didn't understand who the customers were. He thought he was talking to beginning YouTube marketers, when in fact we have advanced marketers who just needed to know a little bit about YouTube. And so he missed the audience completely, and he said, if you'll ever give me another chance, I'd love another chance to try it again. Well, he came back 2 years later, and he got in the top 10%. He did really well. Then he came back this last year, and he was our top-rated speaker because he was willing to learn. And it taught me a valuable lesson. I've got to spend time letting them know who they're talking to and what they're looking for. Otherwise, there will be a miss. And then again, we've talked about it several times, but having the right vendors in place is very important. Have you guys ever had vendors that you've worked with where the values were misaligned? We had a security company one time. We had a couple, and one of them felt more like bouncers. And if you can imagine bouncers and how they fit in a marketing conference where everyone's happy to see each other, and having people who are really stern and can't crack a smile, that didn't go over very well. This past year, we had a company who knew how to enforce the rules when they needed to, but also were there taking selfies with our customers, and we loved it. So make sure you've got the right partners in place who share your values. Production or any of these companies, they can be a commodity. You're just buying equipment and people who can run it, or they can be a valued partner who can make your event outstanding. All of it requires starting in advance. All right, I'm going to skip that and go to this last slide here. So I like to think about events like a restaurant. Break our analogy here for a minute. At a restaurant experience, when you go to a restaurant, you're usually greeted by a host. You're seated at a table, you're brought a menu, you brought your drinks, you order your food, you're brought your food. They pick up your plates, they ask if you want dessert, you order it or you don't. They bring your bill, you pay, you leave. There's maybe some nuances within that experience, but generally speaking, every restaurant has those kinds of things happening at it. 1-star restaurants, 5-star restaurants. 5-star restaurants just has more forks and spoons and knives, but essentially the same experience except for the service. They're paying attention to every detail. The way they do every one of those things is very different at a 5-star restaurant versus a 1-star restaurant. Likewise, at our events, it's in the details. It's in the details. The way we bake our bread, the way we think about all the nuances within the event will help us bake a great event, create amazing, unforgettable experiences, and leave people hungering for more. Thank you guys for being with me. I look forward to talking to you on break. We're going to actually go into a time of Q&A at this point for about 20 minutes, and I don't want you to leave because I do have one final unforgettable thing we're going to do together around 5:30. So but at this point, can you bring the lights down slightly and let's go, or maybe bring the house lights up and let's go to some Q&A. And who wants to go first? I can't even see a hand. I do not have a mic for them. Anyone have a question?
I have a question, Phil.
Yes, Zach.
You mentioned the importance of calculated experiments. What percentage do you think of your experiments? What percentage of your experiments do you think are successful? Out of curiosity.
What percent should be successful?
No, of yours, because I know you guys do a lot of experiments. What percent do you think, at bare minimum, were well worth doing and work?
I don't think I've got a number.
What's it feel like?
I would say the feeling I have is probably about 75 to 80% are worth doing again, that we are glad that we did it. We might make changes to them. Maybe not risky enough, I don't know. But again, when you only do it once a year, people are judging, do I come back next year based on the experience they just had? So I can't afford, like some events, to have too many. Jesse Cole at Savannah Bananas, there's 5 new experiments every night, and he's okay if all 5 fail because they're going to learn from it. And I think that's the key, is are you learning from the experiments that you make?
Interesting. Thanks.
Yeah. Any other questions? All at once, please. Yes?
What's your favorite customer, favorite type of customer?
Favorite type of customer? That's a great question. I would say it's someone who is eager to learn and open to new experiences and ideas, but not afraid to tell me what they think. So I don't like customers who just leave without saying anything, but they're so invested in the experience, they want it to be great, that they're willing to say, you know what, it was awesome, except these 2 things. Like the lady with the neurodiverse issue, she was tempted not to come back, but she believed in enough in me and us and our relationship that she told me about it, and now it makes me want to solve it, and I hope she'll come back, but even if she doesn't, I'm going to solve it for somebody. Yeah, thank you. Other questions?
What's,
Uh,
sorry.
Where do you get inspiration?
Lots of different places. You can probably tell from all the different stories I tell. I am a musician. I'm a former pastor. I like watching movies. I get inspiration from movies. I get inspiration from theater and concerts, sports. I love watching sports. So really not in the event world. I look outside the event world probably more than I look within the event world. I don't get to go to enough industry events. I probably would like to do more of that to see what other people are doing. But I also have some people I follow online and social media and see what they're saying about trends and things that they're trying. So I'm part of several online communities where there are discussions taking place.
That was something I followed. Do you like looking at trends and following trends, or like surprising?
I would say in general, our audience could care less about the trends. My CEO doesn't care about the trends. So that's like a balance I have to walk, is he will find 5 reasons why what is being said in those trends doesn't relate to our audience, and I have to prove the case whether it does or does not, which is a good challenge, right? Like, not all trends relate to your particular situation. So again, it's going to go back to what is the experience we're trying to create, what do they care about, what did they buy? What did they buy and what do they need are not necessarily the same thing. We try to do both, like bring them in and give them what they bought, but also give them what we know they need, which Steve Jobs taught us all about. We didn't know we needed an iPad or any of the things that came along. So,
Thank you.
yeah, absolutely. I think you had a question.
Your second question kind of answered mine, but I was curious if you could pick any style of event that you've done in the past, what would you say is your favorite? Or what style of event would you say has been your favorite in the past?
I'd say the kind that I love being part of, whether I'm planning it or not, is even less important, is more conversational. I think there's so much to be learned in community as adults. So this style of learning is not my favorite. I like being here, but what I would prefer to do is have half a day with you guys and lead a conversation where we're teaching each other and getting better all together. That's more my style of what I love to do. That's really bad to say as someone who wants to be a speaker, but I think for me, the kind of change that happens the most is when we're in deep conversation and things come up, and I'm very much someone who needs to participate in the learning. So, how do you answer that question?
I would, similar, I mean, I like the interaction. I think that's important. I feel like it gives everyone a different light bulb of something maybe they're done, or it gives them an idea of something new to try. So,
Yeah. Awesome. Well, that's the importance of making sure we get some networking time so that you guys don't just leave, but actually talk to each other about some of these ideas. But thank you. Other questions? Yes.
So this is an interesting one. You have a client who thinks they know their customers really well, and in their experience, which they believe they have a lot of, they know exactly how to do an event and do it well.
Mm-hmm.
And what you realize is they're completely disconnected from their customers, and they're engagement, all the things you listed, let's say 50% of them, they're completely not there. So how do you take this person who's absolutely certain that they know exactly what to do and help them create an event that's as spectacular as you know it can be, but they have no clue what that is?
So you're saying the first sticking point is they don't really understand their customers?
Well, they may think they understand their customers, but when it comes to an event and giving their customers an experience that's memorable, right, that's lasting, that has long-lasting impact,
Yeah.
they don't get it.
Well, you're going to have to know the client and what they will listen to. You know, are they someone who will listen to data? If they'll listen to data, then you can show them, you know, that curve that I showed you about memory, that most of your customers are going to forget what happened after 30 days, and do you want that? I can help you make it more memorable, and I can increase the retention through the things that we could work on together. So it might be starting with data. It may be that the stories will help them of what other events have done, but I think someone like that, to me, it sounds like they're going to need to be confronted with something that's going to help them realize that they've got some faulty suppositions about what makes a great event, and then you can introduce some ideas on how to make it better. I will tell you, not everything that I've told you here are things that I have full carte blanche to do within our events. We've tried most of these things. Some of them are things that we have not tried yet. So things that I believe will have great success, and I've seen it at other events. So most of it we have tried and has been very successful. Does that help?
Sure.
I mean, follow up if you want more.
No, yeah, it helps.
Yes.
Phil, to the question about trends, are you seeing any notable trends in live events and conferences in general? And/or were there any experiments from the recent social media marketing world that were new? You said, okay, we nailed that. That's a new development for our conference and maybe at events in general.
Well, I think one of the trends that's out there that I'm paying attention to is AI, and how can that help specifically with networking? So this wasn't an experiment. Well, it is. We're trying to create our own app. So we've got a technical director who's a programmer. He's like, it's not in his nature to want to pay people to do things that he can do, even though his time is very expensive. So he's trying to create an app that will help us for years to come. And there's a part of the app that did not work well, and that was people were trying to connect with each other. And we were having to say, well, the app won't do that. You got to go over to Facebook. Well, not everyone wants to be on Facebook. And Facebook is good for certain kinds of networking and not others. And so we are fully confident that probably by next February, maybe it'll be the year after that, AI is going to help us to bring a lot of data in where people are going to be much more quickly be able to find people that they want to connect with. And so that's at a very affordable price. So the apps that do it today are quite expensive. There are apps that incorporate some form of AI and help you find the right people, but it's pricey. Especially an event of your size, you wouldn't be able to afford it. And we can't afford it. It's like, that's not where we're putting our budget, even though that's a big value of ours. So I think AI is going to make it much more affordable. And it's going to help, it's already helping us in our marketing. Like, it's writing a lot of our first draft copy, titles for sessions. It's helping with a lot of things that it's even doing some of the programming on creating the app. So it's saving us time. So I think all of us can get better at our jobs by letting AI do things for us that are mundane, or that it can do better maybe even than us, so that we can do things that technology can never do. So,
Thanks.
yeah. What else? I realized I didn't go on to the next two slides. I was so excited to get to questions.
You mentioned a little bit your customer that had ADHD. What are you doing to kind of address accessibility in general, either through your
That is a-
registration site or through your
Yeah.
at the event itself? Like, are you working with even your presenters on what's happening in sessions in person to address? I mean, it's a broad. That's a whole Pandora's box to open up. But
Yeah. It's a brand new problem.
Yeah.
I literally learned about it 10 days ago.
Oh wow. Okay.
So I don't have any answers yet. And I invite any of you who are solving that and have solutions to help me. I'm part of a community that's the sole intent of the community of event planners who are focused on this area. So I'm hoping that they're going to help me. But I haven't even brought this to my team yet. It's that new. We haven't had an opportunity for me to discuss it with the team. But I think what she was describing, the problem is as she arrives at the event, she doesn't want to be assaulted with loud experiences. So she said, can you create experiences in a way for those of us who identify with some kind of neurodiverse issue that we can have a different kind of welcome experience that's much more quiet? And so I'm thinking maybe there is a way that she can identify, we give her a different, lanyard or something that she puts on, or we have people that put something on that give her a clue. Hey, if someone's wearing a blue elephant, then they can help you, and they're going to take you to the elevator instead of the escalator, and they're going to take you, and they're going to help you go to a desk that's more quiet. I don't know. We haven't figured it out, but something like that. She didn't say the sessions were the problem. It was the loud things happening in the hallways, the loud parties, those kinds of things. But there are others who, to your point, probably will have issues.
It's a lot. No, yeah, 1 in 30 people have a disability.
Right.
Which is physical or mental.
Yep.
It can be even a mental health kind of thing. It's a lot.
Yeah,
And so
I agree.
It's something I dive in. My husband works in accessibility for a platform, but I'm looking how to translate that to events as well, because there's a lot to it.
I've got 2 kids with these issues, so I'm very familiar.
Same.
But I have not before now thought about how to translate it to the world that we live in, even recognize that things that I love to do, like play my saxophone, are causing problems for some people. So it's something we've got to figure out for sure. Doesn't mean we just totally change our events, but we need to create that personalization, and that's another trend, by the way, Zach, is personalization and hyper-personalization, that people want to create their own experience within it, and some of it's because of these issues, and others just personal preference, So I'd love to talk more. Let's make sure to do so. This is our conference, Social Media Marketing World. Since most of you are in the San Diego area, you're welcome to come join us next year. We're looking for volunteers, so people in the event space sometimes like to go to other events to see what they do. So if that's you, you can let me know. And I didn't put my own contact information up there, so there's that. So those of you who want to follow up, probably use the work email at this point, because that other one, for whatever reason, Google's not liking, but I'm working on getting it fixed. Other questions? We have a few more minutes before we go into our cocktail hour and all that. Do I play professionally?
As a musician?
Yes. Right now I don't play professionally, but I have played professionally. I call myself semi-professional because I get paid when I play, but I don't make a living as a saxophonist. But I have, and maybe someday I will again. Hey, Zach or whoever, if you guys want to grab those special drinks that we have for everybody while we take 1 or 2 more questions. We have. Pardon me? There are not any elephants in the room, but we do have a special experience that we are crafting just for you to close out the formal part of this presentation. But I do have time for 1 or 2 more questions.
I have a question. Sorry, one more, Phil.
Yeah, go for it, man.
What really strikes me when I read your book and your talk is the intentionality that goes into this. That so often I know that we find ourselves not able to get into. Just one question. Do you do this with your team, or do you do this when you're driving home? Thinking about these ways to improve. It's great.
So here's a fun part of the story. I started writing the book 6 years ago. So these are things that I've been thinking about and teaching over the last 6 years, and even longer than that. Some of the people on our team now don't know all these things because they have not had the chance to go through this process. So I'm also continuing to think about it. Like, I realize already the chapter that's not in the book is about community. How do you build community at an event? And it's there kind of, sort of, but that may be the next book, or it's just a next chapter that I've already written, and it's the bonus chapter for the book because there wasn't time to get it into the book. So,
Thanks.
does that answer it? Or
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. I like to write my answer to questions. So I figured might as well write it in a way that will allow people to benefit from it, whether it's on the team or more generally the public. All right, well, all of you have in front of you a small taste of some wine. And one of the things that I like to do is something that I call jazz tasting. So we're going to create a little experiment here together. And we're going to do it in two parts. I'd ask, don't taste the wine quite yet, because I want you to do something else first. We're going to do a two-part jazz tasting. I'd like you to give me 3 words. 3 different people give me a word of something that's going to stand out, something that's going to stick with you from what we just talked about over the last hour or so. So go ahead, give me 3 different words. What's that?
Baking.
Say it again.
Baking.
Baking. All right, baking, yes.
Intentionality.
Intentionality and baking. One more word, please. Grateful. Okay, I love it.
Details back here. That's good.
All right, intentionality, grateful, and baking. Oh boy. All right, hold on. All right. We've got to put the hat back on for this one. All right. All right, so that's baking intentionality with gratefulness. Does somebody in the room know the name and brand of this wine? All right, thank you. But that's not important. What we're going to do right now is I'm going to have all of us smell it and taste a small bit, and I'm going to get some words from you, and I'm also going to have my own words, and we're going to create a jazz tasting from this. So, what do you smell first? Some blackberry, maybe some currants. Yep. Okay, go ahead and take a taste. Someone tell me a story. When you taste this wine, tell me a story of what you remember or can imagine happening about the vineyard where this is made.
It was a very warm year.
Very warm. Okay.
There's a lot of sunlight,
Sunlight.
high temperature.
High temperature, sunlight. Yeah. Okay. What else? Can you picture the workers out in the field picking the berries? They're sweating. Probably have some hats on. Where is this, a California wine?
Yes, it's Napa.
It's Napa. Okay.
They're old vines.
They're old vines. Okay. So these vines have been around a while. Okay. We're making up a story, by the way. This may or may not be true. Maybe you know the truth. Does this make you happy? Does this make you reflective? What kind of emotion does this conjure for you? What is it? Relaxed. Okay, kind of relaxed, but still full of gratitude. Okay. finish. What are you experiencing in the finish of this wine? Is it lingering, or is it, some of you are wine connoisseurs, some of you are not.
I'm gonna say lingering.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, well, I'm not going to keep playing. Thank you for allowing me to do that. It's just fun to do. There's not like a big point to it other than it does give a moment to reflect on what we've experienced and have a moment of gratitude and reflection. And we all experience something here together that will never happen again. Literally. What just happened, that song will never be played again. The conversation we just had, there'll never be this group of people again. And so that's kind of cool. And so I hope you don't just leave. I hope that you actually do linger, have some more of this wine or some more drinks, and there's some food out there. And let me know anything that stood out in the presentation that you'd love to talk about or that you're going to take with you, because it's very gratifying to me if I know you did something with what we talked about. And if you experiment with something, I'd love to hear about that later. So thank you guys for being with me. It's been my pleasure.
Deeply miss your love when I'm far away in another place. All that I dream of, just is your pillow, waiting for your love. You in all the ways, in another place. All I'm thinking of, just can't get enough. You, may not be everywhere I go. But she stay on my mind wherever I go. When I fly above, reach for in today. Though I'm far away, your fantasy I love.